What I'll do tonight is I'm going to begin with a trio of quotes to kind of set the tone and set the frame of our topic. So the first quote is from Thich Nhat Hanh. Looking deeply into a flower, we see that the flower is made of non-flower elements. We can describe the flower as being full of everything. There is nothing that is not present in the flower. We see sunshine, we see the rain, we see clouds, we see the earth, and we also see time and space in the flower. A flower, like everything else, is made entirely of non-flower elements. The whole cosmos has come together in order to help the flower manifest herself. The flower is full of everything except one thing, a separate self or a separate identity. Then the second quote I want to read is a lovely poem from David Wagoner. So the poem is called Lost. Stand still. The trees ahead and bushes beside you are not lost. Wherever you are is called here, and you must treat it as a powerful stranger, must ask permission to know it and be known. The forest breathes. Listen. It answers, I have made this place around you. If you leave it, you may come back again, saying here. No two trees are the same to raven. No two branches are the same to wren. If what a tree or a bush does is lost on you, then you are surely lost. Stand still. The forest knows where you are. You must let it find you. And then the last introductory quote here is from a book that I just finished called I Contain Multitudes by Ed Yong. So this is a book about studying the microbiome of animals, including humans. In the prologue, he says, all zoology is really ecology. We cannot fully understand the lives of animals without understanding our microbes and our symbioses with them. And we cannot fully appreciate our own microbiome without appreciating how those of our fellow species enrich and influence their lives. We need to zoom out to the entire animal kingdom while zooming in to see the hidden ecosystems that exist in every creature. When we look at beetles and elephants, sea urchins and earthworms, parents and friends, we see individuals working their way through life as a bunch of cells in a single body, driven by a single brain and operating with a single genome. This is a pleasant fiction. In fact, we are legion, each and every one of us, always a we and never a me. Forget Orson Welles and heed Walt Whitman. I am large, I contain multitudes. So I selected those quotes because to me, they all are kind of pointing us in a direction. The Thich Nhat Hanh quote reminding us that we really can't locate a single thing that is me or I or you, that whatever we're looking at is much richer than the idea of being a solo entity existing in some kind of vacuum. And the David Wagoner poem reminding us about this intimate relationship that we have and the opportunity we have, in particular with being in nature, when we're in this larger ecosystem that holds us, how who we are is actually located as being a member, a participant in that larger being, as opposed to just being within myself. And then the Ed Yong book, which he, after that end to the prologue, he goes on and elaborates on this idea of us containing multitudes, because there is so much going on in our inner lives. And I don't mean our inner lives the way we often talk about it in meditation, which is also true, but our bodies themselves are home to ecosystems therein. And we are constantly in conversation with various microbes like bacteria that are actually having a dramatic influence on how we live, whether we know it or not, whether we're aware of it. And so in all of these cases, there's a sense that it can be easy to miss the bigger picture and the smaller picture of all the things that we may not visibly see. But these various forces in our lives have a dramatic impact. And I think we have an opportunity by kind of taking in those different forces and not just thinking about them, because I think it helps to think on them, but also to really contemplate what the impact of those are on our sense of who we are and how we go about living in the world. And so I've tried to take some of those things and fuse them together so that when we meditate, we can bring them into our meditation. And so I've just begun this, where when I've been meditating and focusing on my breath, I'm trying to expand my sense of what it means to breathe, so that I'm aware of how the breath is so much bigger than just me here feeling this thing go in and out of my body. And that also that my body itself, when it breathes, that a lot more is happening than just the sensations that I may notice on the surface, that there's an incredible depth to the life force that goes into every breath. So breathing is an opportunity to get in touch with the life force within us that contains multitudes, and the larger world and ecosystems that support us, that allow us to be here at all. One thing that I thought was interesting from reading this book, I Contain Multitudes, there's a lot of interesting stuff. So I'm not a biologist, but I found myself really interested in biology suddenly, because there felt like there was a lot of meaning there. But one little anecdote from the book that I thought was interesting was there are biologists doing experiments with sterile mice. And so these mice have no bacteria, they have no pathogens in them at all. They don't participate in the world the way that beings typically do. And in studying the sterile mice, they find that even in a very enclosed environment, they have much worse health outcomes than other mice that get exposed to all kinds of things that can be deadly, pathogens that can kill mice, but also exposed to the various bacteria that mice have evolved with, that mice have grown to have various symbioses with. And I find it interesting that these sterile mice, even in a lab, don't do terribly well in terms of health outcomes. And that if they let them try to go beyond the lab and live in the world, they really can't survive at all without the support of the microbes. And one of the takeaways from that Yong makes again and again, it's that, not just that it's good to have to be connected to all these small beings that we can't see with our eyes, but also from a more reflective point of view, when our genomes and our lives have been connected for so long through the evolutionary process to these microscopic beings, can we really say that there is an individual, there is a me that is entirely separate from the life within me? Because each of us have all of these incredible worlds within us at the microbial level that I've just begun to learn about. But it's fascinating to think about, can I really separate myself out and say that I exist, can I take myself away from these little beings and say, here I am and here the bacteria are, or here the microbes are? Jung says at a certain point, it kind of becomes a moot point to try to find the individual and the little things, that they all are so melded together, and they are so, the existence of the microbes and the existence of the animal or the host are so woven together that it becomes very difficult to actually separate the one from the other, that the two are in a kind of intimate dance that requires the other. And as a Buddhist, where learning no self or interbeing, where there's kind of an inquiry: how do I locate the me that's independent from everything else? It's interesting to see that at the biological level, the same question can be asked, and you get kind of the same answer. It's really hard. It becomes an act of futility to try to say, here is just me in isolation. So this speaks a little bit to something that my main meditation teacher, Marty Lowenthal, has been developing, an idea he's been developing called common sense mindfulness. And the idea of common sense mindfulness is not so much about, common sense in the sense that, it's really obvious and everybody should get it. It's more coming from the point of view of common sense mindfulness, being mindful of the ways in which our sensibility of being alive is less about the individual and more about what we have in common. Developing a sensibility, developing a lens, and a way of practicing that actually is greater than my own personal spiritual development, that I'm able to be mindful in ways that connect me to the larger sense of interbeing. And I wanted to read a quote from another book. This is The Serviceberry by Robin Wall Kimmerer. And I first got introduced to her work in the book Braiding Sweetgrass. And then she's recently put out a much shorter, concise book. But I think it speaks quite a bit to this idea of common sense in the larger sense. She writes, In the Anishinaabe worldview, it's not just fruits, and the book is about the serviceberry, so a fruit. But it's not just fruits that are understood as gifts. Rather, all of the sustenance that the land provides, from fish to firewood. Everything that makes our lives possible, the splints for baskets, roots for medicines, the trees whose bodies make our homes, and the pages of our books, is provided by the lives of more than human beings. This is always true, whether it's harvested directly from the forest or whether it's mediated by commerce and harvested from the shelves of a store. It all comes from the earth. When we speak of these things, not as things or natural resources or commodities, but as gifts, our whole relationship to the natural world changes. In the traditional Anishinaabe economy, the land is the source of all goods and services, which are distributed in a kind of gift exchange. One life is given in support of another. The focus is on supporting the good of the people, not only an individual. Receiving a gift from the land is coupled to attached responsibilities of sharing, respect, reciprocity, and gratitude, of which you will be reminded. This kind of gratitude is so much more than a polite thank you, not an automatic ritual of manners, but a recognition of indebtedness that can stop you in your tracks. It brings you the realization that your life is nurtured from the body of Mother Earth. So when I've encountered her work, reading other things by Kimmerer, I feel that I'm able to be transported into this sense of wherever I look around me, and the energy of the earth, as she says, even if it's mediated by commerce, even if humans have changed the natural gift in some way and made it something else, we are surrounded by this energy of the earth. And whether we realize it or not, whether we appreciate nature or not, we are constantly in this interplay of being supported by, being connected to, and being responsible for. Everything we do affects the world around us, the ecosystems around us. So it's really helpful to have wise people out there that are able to remind us that when we go about our lives and focus on the things we do to sort out our lives in certain ways, that there's actually, at the same time, even if we're not attending to it, there is this dance of reciprocity. There is this constant giving and receiving from the earth, from the ecosystems that that support us, that are around us. And humans are not always so good at recognizing and being aware of the ways in which we're participants. And sometimes I think that just being aware that we're participants can be the first step to being better participants, better stewards. So with all that in mind, the kind of the connection that I've made, pulling on these wise people from a bunch of different areas, from ecologists and microbiologists and such. One thing that I've started working with specifically is the breath as a really good example of reciprocity. That every time we breathe, even if we're in a car or in a confined space where the windows are closed, the atmosphere gets in. The atmosphere is here. We are able to breathe in the elements of the earth, including, importantly, oxygen. And when we breathe out, we share those elements of the earth back. And importantly, we share carbon dioxide that feeds the plant life. And so there's this, the breath alone can be a reminder, not just, in my opinion, to be present, to be here, which it's done for me for many years, and I appreciate that, but also to be present with, to be aware of the relationship that I have with the environment as an earthling who, in order to live, is needing to receive the gifts of the atmosphere and offering up the gift of on the exhalation. So that's really the crux of the meditation that I want to lead tonight. When we breathe, and we'll do mindfulness of breathing, it has this more of this common sense, what I would say is a common sense mindfulness. And we're going to experiment with breathing from that point of view, where it's a relational act and not simply an act that we take by ourselves in our own homes, in our own rooms, or even as a community, but it's also an act that we engage in as members of the earth who are in this dynamic relationship with the world around us.